It's time for the podcast, which is all about the world of marketing on television through TV shopping networks and infomercials. Are we on the air? I'm your host, Sean Wilsey, and for over 29 years, I've hosted shows on cable shopping networks, generating billions of dollars in sales. Now, I want to be your guide into this world, explaining how it works, why it works, what doesn't work, and introduce you to the people who are making it the success it is today. And as I said on the last show, I'm definitely an ad-lib person, not used to working off scripts that well. I do joke, though, whenever I'm asked to do, because I do most of the voiceover work for Shop LC, and I brag about being one-take Wilsey. I'm one-take Wilsey. Well, if only that were the case. Usually there's several takes. And actually, that totally unintended little mess up there kind of ties into the topic that we are going to be taking on today. We're going to skip doing part 2 of our Ask Me Anything segment for probably till the next show, because I've been wanting to get this one out here before we start getting our guests, Bob Circosta and Marvin Siegel and some others on. Because for those that think that they might want to get into selling on television, whether it's through infomercials or it's through cable shopping networks or whatever, there's a lot to be learned from the pioneers in this industry. Now, I don't mean the pioneers of this industry, television shopping. I'm talking about the pioneers of television. We are going to go back to the 1950s. We're going to go back to the 1960s, and then we're going to jump ahead to the 1980s and look back at very successful television pitchmen. And again, using the term only because it is simply gentlemen that we are going to be showing you here. In the earliest days of television, you had a TV show, a game show, soap opera, talk show, just about anything at all, especially on daytime TV, where you would have a host. Soap opera, bad example. Talk shows, game shows, variety shows. And either the host or the announcer would do live commercials for whomever the sponsor of the show was. Geritol was a popular sponsor of some game shows, and you would have had the host do a live commercial for Geritol. I think of that because if you saw the movie Quiz Show with Robert Redford directed in the 90s, the quiz show involved was sponsored by Geritol, and the host would do a live commercial for Geritol every time that game show 21 was on the air. And many times these hosts started in radio, most of the time, in fact, and they were experts at using their voice, experts at conveying emotion, because that's what radio is. It is storytelling, but it's painting visual pictures. And some of the greatest hosts of all time started in radio, because you learn how to paint pictures. And I'm going to play some examples for you here, and we'll analyze these as we go through as to what makes them so good. The first one, this is mid-1950s somewhere, Arthur Godfrey, who had a talent show on daytime television, and he would do a live commercial for Lipton instant soup. You know, just like the packets of soup that you buy today in the grocery store. Well, they had them back in the 1950s. And so we're going to listen to him do a live commercial for Lipton soup. I'm challenging you to resist a bowl of soup after you hear this. You are going to be craving soup.
But how about some of that chicken noodle soup for spring? You cook it in 10 minutes. Makes 4 to 6 servings each, depending on whether you really love soup or not. You know, just want a little bit. All you want is just a little cup, a little bowl. As you start the meal, it's good for your insides.
Did you hear how he said that? It's good for your insides. It's good for you inside. There was a real emotion there. There was a connection, wasn't there? It wasn't just, it's good for your insides. You know, that would convey it completely differently than the way he just said it. Again, it's using his voice. All of a sudden now, it just seems warm. Because he mentioned springtime, so the weather's still cold. I'm sure he was doing this from New York City. So the weather's still cold. Nice warm soup. Good for your insides.
There's plenty of noodles in there. And there's chicken there, too. You won't find it, but it's there. There's chicken. Guaranteed there's chicken. Guaranteed. If you find any, bring it to us, will you? But it's there. And it's delicious. Really delicious. Because you make it yourself, like you do all the other Lipton soups. Lipton chicken noodle, onion soup, green pea soup.
Do you hear how his connotations and his tempo changed? It's delicious. But then he was getting more matter of fact, and so now all of a sudden he's talking in a little bit more of a straightforward conversational tone because he's delivering straightforward information. He's not going at your emotion. He's going to do that again, though, but for the moment he's delivering information.
Vegetable soup or tomato vegetable soup. And that green pea soup, oh boy. They're all good. And the reason that they're good is that what you buy here are ingredients. It's not a canned soup that you just add water to and heat. No. You cook these. These are ingredients. It takes 8 to 10 minutes, depending on the kind of soup.
See what he just did, too? The objection a lot of people would have to this, no microwaves then, is, well, this is going to take longer. You know, when I want soup, I want it now. Easier to put it all in the pan and just heat it up. He says, yes, it's going to take 8 to 10 minutes, but these are ingredients. You're cooking it. Because you, as a salesperson on television, have to anticipate objections. You have to, in the back of your head, be thinking, what's their objection going to be? And you've got to find a way to go around and counter that objection. And he just did that brilliantly.
You cook it yourself. It's homemade, and therefore it has that flavor. And it has the flavor of the kind of soup that ordinarily, if you were to make it the old-fashioned way, would take hours of simmering on a hot stove all day. You do it in 10 minutes.
Again.
Sure, I know. When you go in the grocery store, there are all those cans that are so easy to pick up, and you have to go way on down till you find the Lipton envelopes. But do it one time. Remember to do it once and try it. I think you'll stick with it.
Again, taking care of the objection. Do it one time. Do it one time. Again, changing his voice. Do it one time. Not commanding you, but really urging you. Do it one time.
You'll find that the difference is worth the little extra effort. They are delicious soups made.
They are delicious soups. Changing his tone again.
Lipton. Try them. Lipton always likes it if I take a taste. I will therefore take a taste.
Again, this is a lot more of a visual.
Oh, look. See all the noodles in there?
Showing you the noodles. Chicken. Steam coming off of it. Obviously, there's some sort of an ongoing joke about the chicken. And so he's...
Oh, that is so good. Oh.
Again, the face. Showing the face. This is what QVC and HSN do so very well with their cooking shows. I have to admit, on a Sunday morning, if I have time, I love watching In the Kitchen with David on QVC. They're good at doing two things there, and we'll talk more about this on a later show. What we call in cooking shows the money shot, when you cut into the steak and the juices are just flowing from it. And when the host takes a bite and that face. And Arthur Godfrey just had that face as he ate that delicious bowl of chicken noodle soup on that cold spring day. Oh, my gosh. By the way, Arthur Godfrey is also a good example of how you have to be careful when you've got celebrities endorsing their product. As good as a salesperson he is, and he was a fine host for his show, turns out he's kind of a jerk in real life. He didn't last much into the 60s. A lot was written about what a jerk he is. So people can appear to be the nicest people in the world on television. Many times it's that off-air persona. When a certain talk show host was going through that about a year ago, that's why I was able to believe it, because history repeats itself. And Arthur Godfrey, as nice as he was on air, he was terrible to some of the people that worked with him. But anyway, fast forwarding to the 1960s, game show. Art James, the host of this game show, again, legendary radio voice, great radio voice, and he's doing a live commercial for Skippy Peanut Butter. Now, this is an example of where things can go wrong. So how do you handle when things go wrong? Again, this was a live commercial on live TV. They weren't recording these back then. And he had a little problem with his peanut butter jar as he attempts to stir the peanut butter with a knife. And he takes the knife and proceeds to jam it into the jar, assuming that it would just sit in the jar. Well,
Good as gold, fresh and moist, any time at all, from the first big swoop off the top of the jar right down to the last little bit at the bottom.
At this point, the knife went all the way through the jar. The bottom of the jar is now hanging off of the jar, and there's peanut butter starting to drip out of the jar all over Mr. James. Does he get flustered? Does he finish the commercial? Watch. Listen.
So for happy young faces, at all times, make sure you've got Peter Pan peanut butter on hand at bedtimes, all times. Or do you?
That's a trooper. He keeps going. He keeps going.
I really go after that peanut butter when I go. Well, listen, I must have weakened it through the 2 or 3 run-throughs of the commercial we had before. It's great peanut butter. The jar is something else, I tell you that. Buy some Peter Pan peanut butter, will you? Oh, my mother told me there'd be days like this, yeah.
That was so brilliantly done. I can't even begin to compliment him enough. I mean, that was taking a moment that, frankly, I hate to say it today, would throw a lot of hosts in this industry into a total panic when things don't go as planned. And that's part of the problem with the way the shows these days at the big networks are so prearranged and so preset. If something like that happens, you've just thrown off the whole plan. What do we do now? It was live TV. He went with it. He finished the commercial. I have to believe the Peter Pan people were thrilled with the results of that. That blooper lives to this day. That's the full version of the commercial, which is harder to find, but it's a very famous blooper, and he handled that brilliantly. So this is again where the impromptu nature of a television shopping network is so important, because you will have moments like that. You will have things like that. One of the questions, in fact, that someone asked me on Facebook was about moments where things go wrong, and oh, yes. I've got a lot of those. We'll share some of those in our next episode. But so from the 50s into the 60s, you had this nice delivery, very straightforward. Gentlemen, again, primarily because they were the hosts of the day. Actually, Betty White had a successful little morning talk show of her own for a while, and she did live commercials beautifully. Arlene Francis did some wonderful live commercials during hers. It's harder to find these clips for me to play, but I've seen them. So, yes, there were women involved there, but it was mainly a male-dominated industry. So then the 70s hit. The live commercials kind of became a thing of the past, and so, there's not a lot of examples. Ed McMahon continued to do them for The Tonight Show. He did Alpo and Budweiser commercials. In fact, into the 1980s, he was doing every so often a live commercial for one of those. But the whole ad industry and what sold on television started to change in the 1980s. We're going to go back to this decade a lot in this series. And those types of salespeople weren't necessarily going to sell anymore. What did it take to sell in 1986 and sell successfully? It took this.
Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever. Get a video recorder, color TV, large screen TV, video camera, even an audio video component system. Get it all on sale now during Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever. Remember, we are not undersold. We will not be undersold. We cannot be undersold, and we mean it. So get anything and everything in TV and video. Get it now during Crazy Eddie's greatest TV and video sale ever. Crazy Eddie, his prices are insane.
For those that have never seen the video of that commercial, because I think that was regional. I think we had that in the North. I don't think anybody in the South or the West had that. Crazy Eddie, he just stood in front of the camera. He had a bunch of TVs and VCRs behind him, and obviously that was one take Crazy Eddie. What did you really learn from it? Anything? Do we know anything about the prices? Do we know brands that are going to be on sale specifically? Really didn't know anything. But that worked brilliantly. For a time, it worked brilliantly. And then I think customers became more savvy, which is why the timing of QVC, I think, was so appropriate, because the audience was changing and what they were expecting was shifting. So what you wound up with there was a very different type of advertising. Who could have imagined that flying back in the 50s or even the 70s? That would have had a tough time going. But tastes changed, times changed, and frankly, indicative of the industry as a whole, because when home shopping started up, when it began as the Home Shopping Club, it was much more in your face. It was louder, we maybe say obnoxious at some points, I don't know. But it definitely was a very different world there. And I was trying to see if I even had my clip handy. I do not. Of Home Shopping Club, 1986. I don't see it handy right now. But, honking horns was common on there. And flashing lights all over the set. Flashing lights everywhere. So it was a very different world back then. And now here we are today, with the much more subdued formats of QVC and HSN, except Shop LC, we're still the rule breakers, doing things our own way. So, but yeah, I feel like before we can go too much further into looking ahead, it's important to look back, and especially look back at the real original pitch people. I hope you'll check me out at my day job as a host for the Shop LC Television Shopping Network. You can find me Wednesday through Saturday between 10 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Time, then again from 3 to 5 p.m. Please follow me on Twitter at Sean Wilsey and on Instagram at SWilsey. Thank you for downloading this edition of Are We On The Air? Love your ratings and reviews. Please share the podcast with others. Let them know about it, especially anybody you know who might be interested in this crazy world of DRTV, marketing on television, through infomercials, home shopping networks, and the like. This has been a King Bobby production.